Welcome to the Retirement Blueprint Show. I'm your host, Paul Gebhard, with our friend Tim Lofton. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's good to meet you, my friend. Good to meet you. So listen, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me where you're from and how you chose to be a financial planner.
Sure. Well, it all started for me actually in Sunday school, of all places. I was 11 years old the first time I discovered what not having money felt like. And it was a very bizarre situation that, of all the places for it to happen at church, but we had this youth group trip that they went on a ski trip every year. And it was kind of a rite of passage. As a 12-year-old, you got to go on the trip. You were old enough to go on the trip. And so remember sitting in class, the lady came in and announced that the trip was coming up, and was super excited. I grabbed my sheet of paper. I ran out of the class, up the stairs, and I was that kid.
Wow.
Just weaving in and out of parents.
Yeah.
I went into the sanctuary, looked to the very back of the sanctuary, saw my mom, and she was talking with these three ladies, and I made a beeline for her. And she looked at me, I'm sure you remember your mom doing this, where that look of, that is not how I dropped you off this morning. Shirts untucked.
Disheveled look everywhere, right?
I had this little bit of chocolate on my face. It was clearly from a donut that only the adults are allowed to have.
Yes,
right?
Yes. Somehow you snuck one. Right?
And she's like, "What, honey? What is it that you're trying to say?" And I'm like, "It's a ski trip. I can go." And I'll never forget, she said, we just can't afford it this year. We don't have the money. And it wasn't the disappointment of not being able to go on the trip as much as the disappointment that she had from telling me.
Oh.
And, it was that point in time that I really think brought me to where I am today in the last, 27 years of this journey of helping people navigate to and through retirement. And so it was a real motivator for me to help others. And that's kind of what started me on this path.
Wow, it's a fascinating story. It's amazing, honestly, Tim, how your story and mine's paralleled. I was a mama's boy, going to Sunday school, same things. We didn't have a lot of money, but I didn't really think much about it because we had love,
Right.
That was big.
Sure.
But it's interesting how you put that and how much that meant, that you were able to pay attention to see the disappointment in your mom's face, It's one of the things that got me in the industry, same thing. My mother passed away on my 15th birthday, didn't have life insurance.
Right.
And at those days, I'm sure you remember well, moms that were staying home, they really didn't value that much. They put all the life insurance on the dads.
Right.
So being the youngest of five, when my mom passed away, it was really horrible losing her, but just going through the financial part of that, we went from a bad situation to something much worse.
Right.
So I certainly share your passion for wanting to make a difference in people's lives and being passionate about, earning some financial strategies for people. Speaking of the financial strategies, I love the concept, retirement blueprint.
Yeah.
So how did you come up with that? What's the concept about?
Well, I'm a marketing guy at heart.
Yeah.
I certainly love the word picture of, the retirement blueprint. Yeah. The idea is built on the 5 cornerstones of planning, and the cornerstone is that first block that you put in before you build. And so the idea of having 5 cornerstones makes for a secure plan. And so I like the word picture it creates, but more importantly, I like for what it stands for. The idea that people can come together in one location under one roof and get good advice on developing an income plan, developing an investment strategy, developing a plan for long-term care and health care and Social Security claiming strategies, and then to be able to have somebody look through the tax lens for them and do tax planning, and then our attorney that does all of our estate planning, that she can basically look at all of it, put it in writing, and build a plan around that is very powerful today. in a world where, most of the time, you go to a wealth management expert, or you go to your insurance person, or you go to your CPA, but nobody's really talking.
Sure.
Nobody is really on the same sheet of music trying to put together something that is truly a cohesive plan working together.
I love that sheet of music.
Yeah.
Because it's a good reference, because it is sort of an orchestra, isn't it?
It is.
Putting it together right. And everybody should know where everybody is in the equation. So that's great that they can sit with you and your team and have it all in one spot.
Yeah.
That brings me to something interesting. You hear a lot today about the word fiduciary. It's kind of the big buzzword,
Right.
What is the fiduciary? Why should we want to know about it? And what is that about?
Well, I will tell you that, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, nobody even heard of the word fiduciary.
Yeah.
What happened is the Department of Labor got involved, and this became a hot political topic, which made it a hot topic on television and in the media, where people were trying to distinguish what is a fiduciary, what is not a fiduciary, who is a fiduciary, who is not a fiduciary. And, the idea of it is fairly simple. I mean, the idea of a fiduciary is they're putting, our listeners at home, they're putting your needs ahead of their own and ahead of those of their company that they work for or represent. They're making sure that you end up with the best thing, not just something that's necessarily appropriate for you, which is the old standard, but something that is actually in your best interest in every way. And so that's a big differentiator with the independent firms out there versus, I grew up in the big box firms where, there was just more, you had less control over what you recommended. There was less control over how you did things. And I think you've seen a fairly large movement with this Department of Labor involvement and the idea of the fiduciary role, where lots of people have moved both on the client side and the advisory side to a place where they can truly practice the fiduciary standard.
Yeah, and that's the way it probably should be, right?
Yeah.
I mean, customized to the individual's need, because it is the individual's plan.
Yeah. And I will say, Paul, even if a firm is not a fiduciary firm, we still see people in the advisory community are still putting their clients' needs, for the most part, in front of their own.
Yeah.
But there is a distinction.
Yes.
And that distinction is one that a lot of people today are gravitating towards as kind of their minimum starting point of having a conversation in the world of advising.
Yeah. So basically, when somebody comes to meet with you, let's say they're coming to get maybe a second opinion. Maybe they've got a financial advisor already, Tim.
They all have a financial advisor when they come to meet with us. I mean, there's the handful that are do-it-yourselfers, but most of the folks that come to meet with us, when they're making that change, they're basically breaking up with somebody that they've known for 10, 15, 20 years.
Right.
We just had a client in the other day, and the husband said, there's no way this is going to happen, because she loves our person. She really enjoys him. She went to his kid's wedding. It's just, there's an emotional attachment there. And, we went through everything, and we presented, and I tell people every day, I'm not here to make a decision for you. You have to make a decision for yourself.
Right.
But we presented to them the difference of where they were, and the savings that it would be for them, and the difference that it would be for them. And they made that choice. And honestly, I was blown away. I really was. It was the right thing for them to do, but that doesn't always mean that it happens.
Absolutely.
So I got to tell you, I have to compliment your tie.
Oh, thank you.
That is so, for our Dayton viewers and all our Ohio State fans, is this not just the best?
And just so you know, it's not planned, Tim.
No, it's like, I feel like
not scripted.
Like Herb Street is sitting right next to me here.
Yes.
I love your tie. That's fantastic.
Thank you, brother.
That's
I appreciate that. Listen, I understand you have a special offer for the first 10 callers today.
We do.
Share that with them?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the first 10 callers today that call in, what we're going to do for you is 3 things. One is we're going to build your very own income plan, and we'll talk about that after commercial. The second thing we're going to do for you is build you a retirement blueprint. Now, that blueprint is going to talk about those 5 cornerstones of planning that I mentioned earlier. That's going to put them on a piece of paper in writing for you at home. And then the last thing that we're going to do is that Riskalyze. And that is just great software. It won the Nobel Prize for Economics. And that is going to be a way for you to see not only the risk that you're taking today, but what that risk interpreted to back in 2008 and 2013 and how that all comes together, and be able to see that in black and white.
Yeah. Well, listen, 10 spots available, completely complimentary. Please pick up the phone. Call Tim and his team today, 855-684-3485. We got to take a quick break, but we'll be back after these short messages. Stay with us.
When was the last time you saw your financial professional? Are you getting the most out of the strategy that was created for you? Although you've done a great job finding someone to help plan for your future, are you 100% sure that you were given the right strategy? We can help answer these questions and more with a complimentary second opinion evaluation. We will take a look at what you have in place and then help determine if you're well positioned to get the most out of your future retirement income. In the event that it is not, we can help by making suggestions and showing you how to get on the right path. You wouldn't get just one opinion when it comes to a major health decision, so why would you treat your most important financial decision with such disregard? Call today for your no-cost, no-obligation second opinion evaluation to see if you're getting the most out of your retirement income plan.
Hello again, and welcome back to the Retirement Blueprint Show. I'm your host, Paul Gebhard, with my good buddy here, Tim Lofton. Tim, again, this wasn't scheduled, right?
No. But
had no idea.
On point.
I mean,
on point.
So
go Bucks.
But by the way, we just got the Ohio State's Buckeye. My team did. I'm a Bears fan, by the way. Sorry, but we just got what? I forgot what his name was. It just slipped my mind.
The bottom line is you got a good quarterback.
Yes, we did. He's good. That we know. But you had mentioned before we went to break, I wanted to jump back in here now and talk to you about the income plan portion. You mentioned mentioning that. Would you share with our viewers what that's about?
So the income plan is based off of several different factors, and a lot of times we talk to people that come in the office and we say income plan, and the first thing they think of is like some sort of systematic withdrawal from their investments.
Yeah,
that's the first thing that comes to mind, and honestly, that's the last place we end up. Our starting point really is understanding what income needs to come in. And then how are we going to put together a plan that includes covering that income need today, 10 years from now, 20 years from now? We talk about inflation as a slow erosion of buying power, right? But what it really is that a gallon of milk costs $2 today, and 20 years from now it costs $4. And having a plan in place that will allow the growth of income is something that's often missed out. We also talk about Social Security maximization. There's over 500 different ways for a married couple. 500
ways?
Over 500 ways for a married couple to claim Social Security. And 90% of people don't do any planning at all with Social Security. They say, hey, I'm 62 or I'm full retirement age, and they claim it. And there's really no thought process that goes in it, and it's a big mistake. We talk about spousal continuity planning. In other words, a lot of times when we look at a married couple, one has a bigger pension and a bigger Social Security than the other. And so if something were to happen to that individual, we see a decrease in income sometimes in the neighborhood of 40, 50, 60, 70%. And so imagine that you're going along, everything's great, and all of a sudden you get a 40 or 50% decrease in income. The idea is we've got to have a plan for that.
Yeah, because how are you going to maintain your lifestyle?
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's really the idea behind it, is looking at all those different areas, and then the solving that problem. If we do need to take withdraw from the investment side, one of the things our wealth management team will tell you is, I don't want to be taking withdrawals from something that's volatile. Right?
Yeah.
And so for those of you that remember back to 2008,
yes,
the market went down 45% or so. Imagine taking income from that type of situation where you're in already a bad time. You're having to pull out, sell things when they're down. It's not the most ideal. So that's where our wealth management team really gets in there and is able to put together a plan that will protect the income piece and make sure that it's something that people can count on.
Yeah, good stuff. So listen, I want to hear about those other 4 pillars for sure. I know we're going to cover that because I think they're quintessential. You mentioned that musical sheet, that orchestra, and I think we need to know the whole thing, right? But I wanted to pick up on something that you also had mentioned before on the tax front of things. I know tax is a big key, and I think, is that part of one of the foundations, actually?
It is.
Strategy?
It is, sure.
So one of the things that a lot of folks want to know is, I pay my taxes. I pay what I believe is due, right? I don't know that there's any other way. So, what is the difference for them between, say, tax preparation versus tax planning, Tim?
Well, there is a world of difference. We ask people this every day, what does your CPA, what is their job? On an annual basis, what are you hoping that they will do for you?
Hopefully give me a tax plan.
Right? But that's not what happens. What they're there for is to make sure you pay the lowest taxes, the least amount of taxes, right? And year by year, that's what their job is to look at your tax strategy and say, where are the places so that we can pay the least amount of taxes? But what if, long term, that's not the best way to go? And I will tell you an example, okay? So let's take a look at Roth IRA conversion, for example. So for you to convert to a Roth IRA today is going to cost a lot more taxes, right? Because I have to pay taxes on the conversion each year, even if I do it over 4 or 5 years. So I'm going to actually be paying more taxes each year for 4 or 5 years to potentially save a lot of taxes over the next 20 years, 30 years. Oh, but Tim, I'm not going to live for 30 years. Well, I'll have, what the numbers say.
Yeah.
Age 94 for a married couple. Somebody makes it to 94, which means IRA money makes it to age 94. And so for our normal person coming in, 60, 65 years old, that's 30-year money. And so that's a 30-year tax plan that we've got to put in place. And paying the least amount of taxes is not always the best way to go.
That's actually a compelling point that you make there, is looking at sometimes in paying too little of taxes early on can actually cost you a lot in taxes later, is what this really boils down to, right, Tim?
We have an example of where it was 7 figures.
What?
7 figures is what they saved over 30 years. By basically following our CPA's advice and doing a conversion. It was unbelievable. We sat down with them and we just asked the question. We said, well, what are you going to do with your required minimum distribution plan? Remember, that's that age 72 where the IRS makes you take out money. And at the time it was 70 and a half was the cutoff. And the client said, well, it's not a big deal. The amount of money that we're going to get is the amount of money we need. And I said, yeah, at 70 and a half, but I said, what about age 90? And of course they said what I just said, well, I won't make it to age 90. I said, well, your money will.
Yeah.
Somebody's, it may be your spouse that owns it, but somebody's going to make it there. I said, did you know that you're going to go from an $80,000 required minimum distribution to a $653,000 required minimum distribution at age 90? They had no idea. Wow. Right? And so by making the conversion and following the advice of our CPA, they were able to save literally about $1 million out of pocket in taxes over a 30-year period of time. And that's if taxes don't go up.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other segment.
Yeah,
maybe next week we'll talk about taxes.
I think we'll come back to that.
I think so, because there's a lot there to talk about.
Yeah, listen, we got to take a break here in a minute. But listen, there's some spots available. It's completely complimentary consultation with Tim and his team. You can pay upwards of $1,500 for a session like this. Let Tim get to know you. Let him build a retirement blueprint for you, okay? Pick up that phone. Make the important phone call. Make the decision. 855-684-3485. Again, that's 855-684-3485. We're going to take a quick break. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
As you prepare for, transition into, and navigate retirement, there's one thing you're sure to have: questions. Lots of questions about retirement. Like, when can I retire? Will I run out of money? Who pays for nursing home care? And many, many more. Axum Planning and Wealth Management uses the Beta Blueprint retirement planning software to help answer your questions. This program takes stacks of documents from every area of your financial life and converts them into one large picture. Just as you would never buy a house without seeing it first, why would you ever retire without being able to visualize it? By being able to see the whole picture, you can then make better decisions about your retirement. First, the blueprint looks at your top goals and concerns. Then, we look at your age and the trigger age decisions you have to make, like when to take Social Security, Medicare, and required minimum distributions. Next, we analyze your fixed income streams and compare that to your retirement lifestyle. For most people, their lifestyle exceeds their income, so we determine which assets to tap to make up the difference. When looking at assets, there are 3 key numbers we want you to know. The first number is the risk score of what you own. Every investor has a risk tolerance, and every investment has a risk score. The risk scale runs from 1 to 99, and the S&P 500 has a score of 78. We use a scientific framework that won the Nobel Prize for Economics for its ability to identify true risk tolerance. If you were taking too much risk, when would you want to know? The second number we want to know is the maximum drawdown of what you own. Maximum drawdown is the maximum loss from a market peak to a market trough. The maximum drawdown of the S&P 500 in 2008 was about 51%. What was the maximum drawdown of what you own? And the third number is your annual withdrawal rate percent. If you're taking too much here, you could run out of money. Finally, we look at your insurance and long-term care. Do you have life insurance? If so, what type, and does it expire? We analyze the income reduction from losing a spouse. We want to know if the surviving spouse will be protected. Have you planned for long-term care? Do you know all your health care options? Being able to put all this information in picture format is like watching holistic planning come to life. Your financial picture helps us identify the potential cracks and red flags in your overall retirement plan. Remember, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Discover the power of the picture for your retirement. Learn how to get a blueprint of your life.
Hello and welcome back to the Retirement Blueprint Show. I'm your host, Paul Gebhard, with my good friend here, Tim Lofton, having all kinds of good fun today and talking retirement, which is...
And Ohio State Buckeyes.
And Ohio State Buckeyes. Don't forget that, right? Ohio State. Yeah. So you were talking a little bit in a previous section about something that, people, I think, overlook a lot. Mm-hmm. And that's the importance of estate planning. Mm-hmm. Why should they really consider taking a look at estate planning stuff?
Well, I think what's interesting, Paul, is the reasons they don't do it.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't do it out of advice, mm-hmm. which it blows me away. The first thing that we tell everyone, whether you work with us or whether you work with someone else, is consult an expert. And an expert in estate planning didn't just go to law school. They're an expert in estate planning. That's all they do.
Right.
And there's only a handful of certified estate planning attorneys in the state of Ohio to begin with. And so there's a short list of these folks. And so, not to take anything away from that profession, but, you don't go to the person that does DUIs and divorces for your estate planning advice. That's just, I understand they spent $2,500 on some software, but that does not make them an expert in that area. And, that's the first commitment, was just work with a professional. The second thing I hear is, well, Tim, is too expensive. And that's understandable. There's attorneys that charge upwards $5,000, $6,000, $10,000, $15,000 for complicated estate plans. Mm-hmm. We do a basic plan for $1,250.
Wow, that's
an estate planning attorney, $1,250, and she's doing the 6 key documents and a revocable trust. I mean, there's no reason not to. I mean, if you think about somebody going through probate in any of the surrounding counties, you know, if they just have a car that goes through probate, they're going to pay more than that. So that's the first thing is you need to do it, whether it's with us or whether it's with someone else. The second thing is understanding what estate planning is, and the best definition that I was ever given was from an estate planning attorney, and I'll share it with you. He said it's a lifelong process, and where you take care of the ones you love when you're living and after you're gone. It gives what you want to who you want, when you want, the way you want, with the least amount of fees possible. That is an estate planning process. And it's a lifelong process. And that's the thing with all planning that I think gets left out. When our viewers at home come to our office, you're not going to leave with a 3-ring binder and the event's over and we're done. We're here to do life with you. We're here to go through retirement with you. The plan is going to help guide us, but the plan's going to change. And that plan becomes our starting point, not our end point. And so that's kind of the key. And the estate plan is part of that. It puts in writing what you want to have happen.
Yeah.
And those key documents, and we'll talk about those in another episode, but those key documents are the kind of the cornerstones within the estate plan of making it happen.
Incredible stuff. It's interesting that you're bringing up estate planning and how important it is for families, because one of the things I see in my line of work, I'm an insurance advisor, and I see a lot of stress on the families when there isn't one. You know, we think a lot about the financial side of it, but it literally can tear a family apart, right? So definitely an important thing to make sure you get that done, at least have that reviewed.
And we even like the idea of, you know, as far as going to the pre-planned funeral. You know, anything that you can do to take the decisions away from the kids, having to, in a time that they're already
upset,
in a bad place emotionally, to have to decide. I tell the story all the time of my mom and my uncle, and you know, my grandmother had passed away, and my mom wanted cherry, my uncle wanted oak for the casket, and it was a big thing. And you know, being in it, I understood it, but at some point you have to be like, "Hey, time out, you guys. You know, we're going with cherry."
Exactly. Exactly.
Because that was my mom's. That was my mom's choice, and so you know, and her point was well taken. Nanny had a lot of cherry furniture, so she should have a cherry casket, and so we went with cherry.
That's good stuff, Tim. Listen, I've enjoyed my time with you today. I've learned a great deal. So I want to thank you first of all for being with us today and sharing such incredible information. The rest is up to you. It's your life. It's your future. It's your plan. What would your plan look like? Pick up the phone call. There are a few spots left. Complimentary consultations with Tim and his team. 855-684-3485. Again, that's 855-684-3485. We want to thank you for being with us today. Take care of yourselves. Be well, everybody.